displaying the glory of God's creation by exploring America one park at a time. Welcome to Parking Full Time with Big Dave, the park's professor. 10th hole. The par and distance are at the top of the screen. This is a long par 3, and both the road we're crossing right now and the road to the right is out of bounds. There's also a smattering of large trees that you have to deal with, but the gaps between the trees are pretty wide, and therefore this hole is a stern but a fair test. I want to welcome you back to Parking Full Time. I am Big Dave, the park's professor. I need to say a word about the disc golf options at this park. This park has two 18-hole disc golf courses, the West Course and the East Course, and therefore it has 36 holes of disc golf. Alternatively, you can divide the 36 holes into 18 original holes and 18 new holes. The 18 original holes are called the Central Course, and that's important because this basket that you see here is actually numbered according to its position on the Central Course, not according to its position on the West Course. The 11th tee is across the road to the west from the 10th hole, and the 11th hole is the first of the two new holes that we're going to play on the back nine. These two new holes are by far the most heavily wooded holes on this course. This hole has a well-defined fairway, but it bends first slightly to the left and then slightly to the right, so you're going to need a well-controlled disc flight in order to get up close to the basket in only one throw, and therefore set up a birdie opportunity. There's the basket for the 11th hole on the West Course, and there's the view back to the tee from behind the basket. The 12th hole plays the opposite direction as the previous hole, and it also plays right up against the park's west boundary. This hole is the tightest hole on this course, as it plays through this dense pine thicket. It's a slight dogleg right, and you're going to need a really accurate throw in order to get up here close to the basket to set up a birdie opportunity. This is the last of the two new holes. To get to the 13th tee, you have to walk to the left, back across the park road, and then a couple hundred more feet back into the parkland. The 13th tee is actually right beside the second tee. The 13th hole is a mostly open hole. There is a semicircle of trees in front of the basket, but the gaps between those trees are pretty wide. Therefore, there's plenty of room to maneuver a disc. This basket is on top of a column, and that makes putting more interesting. Also, as we get close to the basket, you'll see that this is numbered as the 7th basket, and in fact, this is the 7th hole on the Central Course. It is, though, the 13th hole on the West Course. The Central Course really causes confusion, and I really wish they would just number all of the tees and baskets according to their position on the East and West courses. If you play the East and the West courses, you have played all 36 holes of disc golf available at this park. The 14th hole is another mostly open hole. There are 3 large trees directly in front of the basket, and you could go either to the left or to the right of those trees. Going to the right gives you a little more room to maneuver in your disc, but as you can see, we're actually going to go to the left. You can see some picnic tables shortly behind the basket, and that would be a safety issue if there were people sitting there. There's the view from behind the basket back to the tee. The 15th hole is another fairly open hole. It is a slight dogleg right, and there's more space out to the left than there is to the right, so you want to use a left to right disc flight to make the best use of that open space. I captured this video on Monday, February the 10th, and it was a damp and chilly morning with temperatures in the upper 30s when I came here. There are just enough trees on this hole to make you pick a line and execute a throw, but definitely not enough to give you the heavily wooded feel. There's the 15th basket on the West Course, and there's the view back to the tee. The 16th hole has another of the dreaded double mandos right in front of the tee. It's wider than the one we saw on the front nine, but it's still annoying. You can't see the basket from the tee, but it's actually behind the largest tree that you see straight ahead. Throwing through the gap that we're walking just to the left of that tree will give you the widest line into the basket. I do want to thank you for watching. Parking full time would not be anything without the people who watch. I realize that every day, and I thank you every day. There's the 16th basket, and there's the view back to the tee from behind the basket. The 17th hole is another mostly open hole, but it does have a cluster of large trees just short and left of the basket. If you aim at the telephone pole in the distance and use a slight right to left disc flight, that'll give you the best chance to get close to the basket. At this point you start to realize that a lot of the holes in this part of the course have about the same length and about the same feel, and therefore this course does start to feel a little bit redundant at this point. I also want to remind you that I took a vow many years ago not to make any monetary compensation for anything I do for this project, and I have held to that vow, so the only thing I get for doing these videos and writing these course reviews are your likes, your subscribes, your views, and your comments, and I do appreciate all of those things. The 18th hole is the last hole on the west course. It's another lightly wooded hole with a cluster of trees directly between the tee and the basket. We're going to walk to the right of that cluster, and that's the tighter line. There's a wider line off to the left, but that's also a longer line. Overall, this is a passable recreational course. I can think of about a dozen recreational courses I like better than this one, and I also like the East course better than this one. This course doesn't have a lot of hole variety, it doesn't have a lot of challenge, and it does have quite a few safety hazards. This course is okay, but there are a lot of courses I like better than this one. That's the end of the West course. I will see you next time on the East course. Until then, have a great afternoon, take care, and Lord bless.